What if I told you that there was no curse and that a fan base desperate for winning would believe anything? 5 students, 1 class, 10 minutes, this semester on SASM's 30 for 30.
The original name of one of the Major League Baseball teams in the city of Chicago was known as the White Stockings. The team was started in 1871 and only lasted 3 seasons through the beginning of 1875. The White Stockings was a founding member of the All-Professional National League Association in 1871. Following the Great Chicago Fire, a new ballpark was built where it hosted 2 games. Then they returned to the field of play in 1874. Called the White Stockings through 1889, the nickname code supplanted White Stockings. The team name now is officially the Chicago Cubs. The American team, who is now the Chicago White Sox, entered Chicago in the 1900s with permission by the Cubs only if they would not take the Chicago city name.
The Chicago Cubs received their nickname the Cubs in 1902 from the Chicago Daily News. The Cubs made the World Series 3 consecutive years, losing to the White Sox in 1906, but came back and won back-to-back World Series in 1907 and 1908. Back in the day, the World Series was called the Fall Classic. It was the first team to play 3 times in a row, as well as the first team to win 2 in a row. However, the Cubs were never able to make it back to the World Series until 2016.
William Sionis, a local Greek who is the owner of the Billy Goat Tavern and a Cubs fan, bought 2 tickets to Game 4 of the 1945 World Series. At the time, the Cubs were leading the series with the Detroit Tigers 2-1. In hopes of bringing good luck to the team, he brought his goat Murphy to the game. At the entrance to the park, William Sionis was stopped and told that no animals were allowed in the park. In frustration, Sionis appealed to the owner of the Cubs, P.K. Wrigley. Wrigley replied, "Let Billy in, but not the goat." Apparently the goat stunk. According to legend, the goat and Sionis were upset, so then he threw up his arms and exclaimed, "The Cubs ain't gonna win no more. The Cubs will never win a World Series so long as that goat is not allowed in Wrigley Field." The Cubs were officially cursed. Subsequently, the Cubs lost Game 4, and the remaining series getting swept at home and from the World Series. William Sionis sent a telegram to P.K. Wrigley stating, "Who stinks now?" For the next 20 years, throughout the remainder of Billy Goat's life, the Cubs would finish each season at 5th place or lower, establishing a pattern that would reverse the Cubs' luck and turn the team into the lovable losers. In 1973, William Sionis' nephew and new Billy Goat Tavern owner, Sam Sionis, with the help of Tribune columnist Dave Condon, brought the goat to Wrigley in an attempt to lift the curse. The goat was escorted to Wrigley in a white limousine and given a red carpet entrance to the park with a sign saying, "All is forgiven. Let me lead the Cubs to the pennant." The ushers at the entrance denied the goat yet again. The Cubs saw their mid-season first-place lead wither away to another unsuccessful season.
The majority of the early to mid-2000s were a struggle for the Chicago Cubs as they struggled to win games and also shuffled through a few different managers. Though they did have a few National League Central titles, they were never able to make it to the World Series. The most heartbreaking conclusion to any of the 2000 seasons included the 2003 NLCS, where Steve Bartman, a Cubs fan sitting in the seats down the left field line, interfered with a catchable foul ball that arguably cost the Cubs the series.
Again in the air, down the left field line, reaching into the stands and couldn't get it, and he's livid with a fan.
That's awfully close to fan interference right there. The umpire's all over it. The umpire right down there, Mike Everett's on the play. If Alou has to reach into the stands, it's fair game for the fans to catch the ball. If the fan reaches out over the field, then it can be ruled fan interference. That is very, very close.
With the fact that many fans had already believed for some time that the curse of the Billy Goat was real, this only reaffirmed their ideas. To continue through the 2000s, the 2005 Cubs were expecting a great season. However, that season never fully got rolling. It was halted by quite a few key injuries, again reaffirming some of the ideas of the curse. The 2006 story was very similar to the 2005 in that there were many injuries to the team. 2006 team lost 96 games. However, the Cubs were able to return to the playoffs in 2007 and 2008.
Fortune magazine does a list of the world's greatest leaders yearly. Last year's list had a new individual to take that number one spot. That individual was Theo Epstein. Winning the 2016 World Series with the Chicago Cubs puts him in the books as one of the best presidents in the history of Major League Baseball. When Epstein left the Red Sox in 2011 and decided to join the Cubs, he knew it was going to be a tough job to get this organization to the promised land, a feeling no living fan had felt in over 100 years. Theo knew the Cubs would not be able to compete for at least 5 years, and he made that clear to the fan base. To excite the fans right off the bat, Theo decided to make a trade to acquire a player he drafted when he was working in Boston. That player was Anthony Rizzo. He knew that Rizzo could be the rock for this organization, and knew that he would be able to be a great teammate through the good times and the bad. Epstein was able to make smart trades to acquire players such as Jake Arrieta, Kyle Hendricks, Pedro Strop, and Addison Russell. The Cubs had a rough 2012 season. They finished with the second worst record in the league. This bad record leads the Cubs to have the second pick in the MLB draft, where they decided to draft a young third baseman out of the University of San Diego named Kris Bryant. Bryant is now one of the best infielders in the National League and is just one of Epstein's many home runs he has hit in the draft. Some other players Epstein drafted that played an important role on the World Series team included Javier Baez, Albert Almora, and Kyle Schwarber. When Epstein saw the club getting close to contention, he knew he needed one more thing: a proven coach. In November of 2014, that manager became available. Joe Maddon was hired away from the Tampa Bay Rays by Theo Epstein. Once Joe got a hold on this team, it was only up from there. He led the Cubs to the playoffs in his first year as manager, and then led them to a World Series in his sophomore year. Joe was able to utilize every player Theo had on that team, and that is exactly why the Cubs broke the 108-year drought and brought the trophy back to the north side of Chicago.
This is going to be a tough play. The Cubs